All right, I just did a test a little bit ago and it seemed like we were good to go. So I'm gonna start here, take note of the time. Hope everyone is doing well today or night whenever you watch this. Um, so I'll just jump right into it so that we can use all of our time effectively. The concept that I was considering is meaning or purpose. Not a very, big one at all, right, to start off with. And one of the things I've been noticing recently is something related to a talk I saw with Jiddu Krishnamurti. If you've never read his books or watched his lectures and dialogues he's had with other people online, I would recommend it. Although I think a lot of the times he makes the point that humans have an innate intelligence that we just basically have blocked for many reasons. One of which could be like cultural conditioning, for example. And so part of the challenge with looking at a topic like meaning or purpose is we dive into it very quickly. And there's a desire to have answers and to have, to be frank, meaning out of meaning that we can act on, understand, debate, think about, make plans with, etc. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, making plans where you're going to live, how you're grocery shopping to, make meals throughout the weeks to spend, moderately, to not spend, $1 million on fast food and eating out kind of thing. Those are definitely plans that you have to at some point initiate, especially if you move to a new city or you're changing your routines kind of situation. But then there's also the purpose or meaning making, which can be a little bit challenging to navigate because one of the, I would say, inevitabilities of having our level of consciousness is we sometimes get into spirals of thinking where we are debating 1,000 thoughts on a given topic, and thus clarity, simplicity, small steps towards actions with a larger goal can be very difficult. One of the things that makes it difficult is the desire for something like immediate, or is it immediate gratification? Yeah, immediate gratification, which is sought often, versus delayed gratification, which can hard to be seen and interpreted over time, as those results don't, flourish very quickly. An example is, someone who might be in a weight loss journey or, who starts working out again and, wants to be like, okay, well, I want to lose, 20, 30 pounds, something like that, and get into better cardio shape to play a sport I used to play. One of the challenges there, and I'm currently going through that right now, is, not seeing the immediate results. You can see some results over a couple weeks and months when you stick at it with your routines, and making it a part of your routine can be, a challenge at times of various levels. But the fact that immediate versus delayed gratification has, outweighing benefits and cons, or setbacks, if you will, where immediate gratification often can take precedence if we're not being present, right, is a challenge. But I didn't want to spend this whole discussion here simply speaking about delayed versus immediate gratification. I feel like that's a topic that could be discussed, but I think it's only a subset, if you will, of the major topic, which is of meaning and purpose. What is, say, the meaning of life, or what is some meaning that you could pursue to make your life, flourish and be beautiful. I mean, there is something to be said that, you know, if you force it too much, it won't actually be, you know, as enjoyable as it would be if you were just in the moment, right? There are some things that we can do where we do too much, if you will, and it lessens the meaning of what we're trying to do. It's no easy task at points. It can be like a natural flow, but it can also be problematic when you realize that part of our meaning making or purpose making, if you will, our compasses for it and which direction we're going to go and with what intensity have been given to us by others. And while other people, siblings, family, elders, coworkers, new bosses or mentors, etc., can offer advice on, you know, what might make for good meaning. For example, if you're choosing a career, what kind of career you want, what kind of benefits it has, what are some of the drawbacks in working in that field type of situation. Other people can offer you advice on it, but ultimately you are the one that does have to make the decision, which is why I feel like, you know, part of the scenario you might see in society where adults of a given kind tell their children or the youth they interact with, you know, oh, the only thing you're going to go do is go get a secure job, right? Lawyer, doctor, engineer, some job with a high salary, because financial security is a real need, and really it's the only need. And people may not say it in those exact words, but maybe you've been taught that since a very young age. And so then when you come to make meaning of it and say, no, you know what, actually, I don't want to be a doctor. I don't like medicine that much. I'm not willing to go to medical school for 3, 4, or 5 years, whatever it is, and take the risk of being, you know, 50 to a couple $100,000 in debt. I'm not sure what exactly it would be, but you see where I'm going with that. And so that's not what makes meaning or purpose for me. And part of the problem there, further still, right, is like, well, what are you going to do with this life to make sure you can own a home, and do all the things that we do and the things that we love and whatnot. It's very interesting how meaning comes out of different situations, right? People who associate meaning with always taking very large, lavish vacations, and now in the modern age, posting about it. I've done that from time to time. I'm not, you know, I'm guilty of being a part of the culture as much as anybody is, but you can still reflect on it. Yeah, it might be a little bit hypocritical at times, but to not reflect on it is Socrates' point. The unexamined life is not worth living, especially if our goal is to find real meaning and purpose making. You know, you do have to question things at some point, and not question things to go mad, like the thousands of things we were thinking about, like I said a couple of minutes ago, where your mind can never get settled. But you're allowed to question things. You know, we have this level of consciousness for a reason. And sometimes it might be self-defeating, and it might be selfish, and it might be greedy, and it might engage in habits that are not good for us. But it also has a distinct power where you are able to debate different topics, either with peers or internally, and you can make given choices to a certain degree. Again, I've said this before, I don't know that I really want to talk about free will, because it seems like the people in those camps who obsess over the topic, or who are very passionate about the topic, if it's not an obsession, are so busy like, oh, it does exist or it doesn't exist. What does meaning mean? Is meaning when somebody gets you the best gift each and every year, better and better? Is meaning when you go to your religious ceremony and you sit in the place of worship and you hear the songs about your prophet, Messiah, guru, head person of the religion, alive or dead, real or possibly maybe fictional, depending on historical sources? I understand that's a controversial point, but why do we have our meaning? Will I be happy in the future when I have X, Y, and Z? So happiness eludes me until then. Meaning, ultimate meaning, eludes me until then. And this inquiry, this desire to look at meaning and purpose, and I don't want to assume much, but I would say a deeper level than I think the average person does, out of fear of losing meaning, potentially, or coming to realize that some of the things you did find meaning and purpose in are no longer, you're starting to lose that, and you're afraid of that loss. If you're a little bit older, have you ever met a person who is in their 30s, 40s, or 50s somewhere, and to this day, in their later, their mid years in life, however long a life would be, 60, 70 years, although that's another point we can't always tell because we don't know for sure, which is a scary thought, but don't be afraid of the inquiry. This kind of movement, this kind of pursuit can be a little bit scary, but when you come to truths that emerge out of that inquiry, they can be really beautiful. But yeah, you have the person who's 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, whatever the age might be, and they, to this day, the only way they live life is like they were 20 years old, where every Friday and Saturday night is a rager of a party. Thus, the party is what brings them ultimate meaning. The potential for intoxicated minds is what brings them meaning. The goofiness of their friends and them acting in some way, playing some games, doing some pranks, whatever else it might be. The music and the dancing, the vibe of the night. And I don't want to say that this could translate over to things like, Burning Man and all these music festivals that are very popular. Because again, it's not to say an objective, hey, like it's kind of dumb that it's kind of dumb that you always all of your happiness and meaning is in the next event. So until then, you live a robot life. That would be subjective. That's also not what I fully believe. It's not an objective point to make. You do those things. Any person does certain things that could be viewed exactly the same. And so people start pointing fingers. Well, like, well, you're critiquing my life, but what about you? Da da da. It's an inquiry for the sake of trying to understand, to come to a higher level of comprehension, but not analysis that becomes paralysis. Once again, that's one of Jiddu Krishnamurti's favorite phrases. And I've referenced him a couple times right now. Analysis becomes paralysis is literally a quote he made in a couple of videos with dialogues with people he was having. But I've referenced him a couple of times right now. And people might say, well, you've traded, Hinduism, Islam, Christianity, being a Republican, being a Democrat, being conservative, being liberal, you've traded it for following this guy. Yeah, and admittedly, we have influence from elders, we have influence from religious figures, we have influence from philosophers in history, we have influence from cultural norms, we have influence from cultural icons, music, entertainment, etc. There's no denying that those factors have influences on us, because to drop it all, I don't think it would be impossible, but a person might say, well, what do you want to just live a life where you're sitting in a chair for 60 years not doing anything? You want to meditate every day for however many hours? How you going to find meaning in that? So it's not to critique in a judgmental way, even though at times my human side, right, can come off that way. That's not the initial intention. The intention, so far as the debater can see, who am I? The intention is to inquire as to what we consider meaningful and purposeful in life and why we do, not in judgment, not in pointing fingers, and not to destroy any foundations, about obsessions with sports, but not knowing which politician is supporting, healthcare that's going to be accessible to people. Supposed to be our representatives, right? But how much does the average person actually know about the upcoming election? Been there many times. What it is to say is that you have a power inside to recognize meaning and purpose, which could help you flourish. Some of it, unfortunately, is transitory. Transitory? Transitioning. Would that be the word? Over time. Transitory, I think, is the right word. Look it up. But basically, transient might be the better word. I used to make this analogy. Taco Tuesday, when I was in my young 20s, was the thing. There'd be a couple places you go to. The tacos were, they were okay. You go there for happy hour, hang out with friends, and you spend 30, 40, 50 bucks, maybe less if you're a college student or a young 20s person who doesn't have a job. But later on, it became clear that this night would affect Wednesday morning. If I was up late, it would, that was the thing. So nothing else could be done that night, like going to work a shift or to be working on other goals, hitting the gym, whatever else it might be. The trade-off situation you have there, mentioned by Thomas Sowell, a conservative economist today. I think he's like 90-something years old. We have trade-offs, is what he argues, in life. So it's, again, not to sit there and judge, trying to, a gotcha type of thing, especially with yourself. Right? Someone goes to look in the mirror, and I realize I'm already at almost 20 minutes, so I'm going to try to wrap it up here. You go to look in the mirror and you're like, oh, gotcha. Your meaning and purpose is surface level. It's transient. You're an adult child. You fear change towards different stages in your life because you are uncertain of that new period, the unknown. You know that there's a person you're friends with who asks to borrow money, never pays you back, doesn't really call or ask you how you're doing. They only show up when they need something, right? And they might be a divine being of the universe, but maybe they're so broken from their little 5-year-old self that They only see life as taking everything that they need and giving nothing back to any other person. You come to the realization the meaning might need to change where we don't talk anymore. That's a hard one. But on the positive side, you know when good meaning and purpose come up. It's just hard to recognize it, especially when if our modern economy tells you that meaning and purpose are continuously transient and a new need for yourself, the newest phone model, the newest deal on a certain product where you used to be paying more and now you have this new product that you pay less on, or some kind of deal, but nonetheless you bought something that you may not have needed. And again, I'm there too. But looking at the meaning and purpose for things that drive you. One of the reasons why I really like going out into nature, not only because, there is the driving there, but more or less, if you're bringing your own food, and you're not maybe going backpacking for weeks at a time, but you're kind of just going for a day trip or whatever else, is it's not that expensive, all things considered. You already have the sunscreen if you have to wear it. You generally have different types of clothes for different types of weather. And really, you just need the path, one that you feel comfortable with, unless you want to really challenge yourself, to go get some good cardio. And something like that, or sitting next to the ocean with a friend and just listening to the waves. Oh, how is this gonna, what's the benefit of this going to be? What's the meaning I'm going to get from here? Don't assign it. Your brain's already gone too far by doing that. Well, I don't know if, the one sports league, yeah, you could go play the sports. Might give you a lot of meaning to go compete in some sports. But if you're the person who's 30 years old in a non-competitive sports league or a competitive sports league, and you're so competitive over it that you are the one who initiates to where you won't go shake the other team's hand after the game. Sometimes accidents happen, right? I was once a pitcher in slow pitch softball and I got nailed with a ball back at my calf, had a scar. I think I still have partially tilted to this day. But if you're the person who's overly competitive in those games to the point where you will not go shake other people's hands, somebody's an infant adult or an adult child. Many reasons why that could be. The parent who wanted them to be a professional athlete and they never fulfilled those goals. And so the parent is disappointed in them for ridiculous reasons. You know how hard it is to be a professional athlete? Like really make it? You're probably not going to do it. No offense to you. You can try. But if you put all meaning, as an example there, if you put all meaning and purpose into that pursuit, and then one day you just abysmally fail because it's actually very difficult to be a professional athlete in the, hundreds of thousands of millions of people that try, or a professional entertainer. It's not to say don't go try those, but accept reality. And people say, well, you're putting limits on that person. No. It's just, am I developing and with this inquiry, trying to develop a healthy pursuit of meaning and purpose in this life? Realizing that I can't do every sport. I can't, be happy every single moment because there are many stresses in life that I have to deal with. Although you might say with a little bit of mindfulness, you could try to decipher through things. For example, if you know that you're making meaning of something that is not helpful to you, If you get turned down by 5 jobs, even if you showed up in a suit with a good resume, meaning, oh, dude, these jobs are so stupid, they hate me. No, maybe there was just a candidate was that the employer thought was better than you. Maybe you're just in a really bad time of the market for that given job. Been there. That one, a couple of years ago, that was really difficult. And now, in my job of education, they're begging people to become teachers. In a short 5 to 7 year span, that is wild to me, considering where I might have been a couple of years ago, not too long ago. Observe what I make with meaning and purpose. Not to judge myself, but to feel like I can stand up to a family member or maybe a distant cousin who believes that a toxic relationship with making fun of, belittling, aggressiveness all the time is simply a part of your culture. And you say, hey, man, don't touch me. Don't insult me like that. I'm a good person. You know, if I don't want to joke around like that, where you just degrade people, do you have to be respectful to an older person just because of that? Or to a cousin who's your own age? It's very interesting to me that some people are scared beyond words to analyze the meaning or purpose or why they do what they do in life. It's not to judge them, and it's not to say I am holier than thou, because I'm not. I have faults like any other person. But it does make me wonder why so much of our population refuses to go look at real meaning and purpose. I think because once you start to unravel it, when you realize that some of the failures you've had have been self-inflicted, or some of the pain and suffering you've gone through is because you were unable to make boundaries, whatever it might have been, or a real hard one, pain and suffering that came your way was outside of your control because some of it might have been inside, but there's definitely the outside sources that could have come in some way to attack your meaning and purpose. To have the courage to have the discussion of observation and to inquire about meaning and purpose may seem scary at first, but there's a liberating feeling that could potentially come over you to where you realize that the not so great or less than ideal things you once gave meaning or purpose to can slowly dissolve. It's hard to do that if that means a relationship with another person of some kind, whatever that relationship might be, when you come to realize, yeah, they're not wanting to do the same thing I am. All of our conversations are about their suffering. The one time I needed them, no answer. But when you come to those realizations about how you can really just try to decide what you want to do for a career, what activities you engage in to make meaning and purpose, the inquiry that you follow down that road. Doors have a more likelihood of opening and worlds appearing that you never even thought possible than if you stay stagnant. And I've been thinking about that a lot recently, trying to publish my first book, but being a little bit intimidated by what happens if it doesn't do well. So am I only publishing a book for monetary purposes? Don't be afraid of the vulnerability in inquiring for purpose and meaning. Because in that way, the old can shed like trees in winter. And in spring and summer, who's emerging? The new you. Stronger, more resilient, more full of meaning and purpose. Less afraid of rejection and failure, the transitory failure. Am I a failure because I've failed? Absolutely not. But if I keep being afraid of failure, if you do discussions, and I know I'm at 30 minutes, so I literally promise I'm about to stop right now. If you do these processes to inquire within, I would love to be a thought partner if you wanted to, but also know that the road will be rocky, especially if you come to some big realizations about how your meaning or purpose were given to you and you never decided on them. But to understand that it's okay to be compassionate with your past self and to plan for the future. Just don't live in either of those places only. Happiness is not in the next vacation. It might boost it because of the fun you have. But contentment and purpose and meaning, all the other words you might use to describe it, or just feel it, it's in the beauty of now. Or at least a significant part of it is. Good luck with that pursuit. I'm going to stop there. I know they're long. I hope that they're worth your time going through these mental chewings, considerations. Have a good day.